A trickster named Nicky Spurgeon visits a bar in New York City. He spots a pretty, young blonde woman with another man bothering her. She manages to get away from him when he falls asleep from drinking too much, and then she goes over to Nicky's table. Her name is Jess. They go up to Jess's hotel room and start kissing. Suddenly, a man comes in with a gun and threatens to shoot Nicky, but Nicky makes a joke that he has cancer, and the man doesn't want to shoot him. Jess realizes that Nicky knew something was up. Nicky tells them how they could have robbed him properly, then he leaves. A few nights later, Jess meets Nicky again and pleads with him to teach her how to con after researching him. Nicky shares a story with her about his father and grandfather, who were partners in a failed con. To make it seem like they weren't working together, Nicky's father had to shoot his grandfather using a technique called the Toledo panic button. Nicky agrees to teach Jess and explains that conning is like a game that requires concentration. He demonstrates how he moves his hands so skillfully that she wouldn't even notice if he took something from her. Nicky, with his friend Horst and their team of con artists, takes their operation to New Orleans during Super Bowl week when the city is crowded with people. Jess also joins them there to practice their cons. They show Jess how to pickpocket watches, wallets, and other small items from people in the busy streets. They also take her to a hotel casino to practice some more. After proving herself, she is allowed to join their team. On a side note, we see that Nicky might have a problem with gambling as he loses money at a horse racing track. Jess meets Nicky's friend and partner, Farhad, who is involved in more complex schemes. She sees him removing a fake ATM used to steal personal information. Jess likes Farhad despite his sometimes rude behavior. As time passes, Nicky and Jess become attracted to each other. After they have sex, Jess asks Nicky why some people call him mellow. Nicky explains that his father used to call him that because he thought he was too soft-hearted like a marshmallow. Nicky thinks that being too emotional can be dangerous in their line of work, and may even lead to death. The night before the big game, after completing all their cons, Nicky gathers the team and praises them for breaking a record, earning $1.2 million. He tells everyone to go home and promises to send them their share of the money. Horst hands Nicky the bag of cash and asks him not to gamble with it. Nicky promises not to, and Jess watches him closely. Nicky and Jess attend the football game and make small bets with each other. For example, they bet whether a fan will catch a hot dog, or whether someone will be too drunk to participate in the wave. They also make a bet on how many men will look at a woman's shorts as she walks by. Jess bets that 8 men will look, while Nicky bets that only 3 will. During the football game, a man named Mr. Luyen gets interested in the bets that Nicky and Jess are making and decides to join in by betting $5. When they bet on how many men will look at a woman walking by, Jess wins the bet by guessing that 8 men will look. Luyen then starts making more bets with Nicky, even when Nicky wants to stop. Nicky eventually gives in and plays, but ends up losing $1,000 to Luyen. The 2 men keep betting more and more, despite Jess telling Nicky they should leave. Nicky ends up losing $100,000 and tries to leave, but Mr. Luyen convinces him to keep playing. Nicky ends up betting all the remaining money they have, $1.1 million, on a high card draw. Unfortunately, Mr. Luyen wins the draw and takes all their money. Nicky and Jess feel very sad. Nicky decides to take another chance and offers to make an even bigger bet. He challenges Luyen to pick a player on the football field, and Nicky will try to guess which one. The odds are almost impossible. Luyen thinks Nicky is too risky and doesn't want to bet on it. Nicky makes a new bet saying that Jess will choose the same player that Mr. Luyen picked. Jess feels scared, but Nicky says that they have nothing to lose. Mr. Luyen agrees, and Jess looks through binoculars to choose a player. Jess hesitates, hoping Nicky will change his mind, but he tells her to pick. Finally, Jess sees Farhad wearing a jersey with 55 on it and selects him. To everyone's surprise, it turns out to be the right answer. On the way back home in a taxi, Nicky tells Jess that he planned the whole gambling setup from the beginning of the day. He knew Luyen is a well-known gambler, and made sure that he would see the number 55 frequently throughout the day. This way, Luyen would be more likely to pick that number when the moment came. Then, Nicky has the taxi stop while another car pulls up behind them. He tells the driver to take Jess to the airport, and gives her the money she earned. Without saying anything else, Nicky leaves, leaving Jess feeling upset and confused. 3 years later, Nicky is in Buenos Aires, Argentina, working with a billionaire named Rafael Garriga who owns a race car, and his partner, Owens. Garriga and Owens have a new way to make their race cars go faster, but they want to make sure they win against their biggest competitor, McEwen. They plan for Nicky to pretend to be a former employee and sell a fake version of their new technology to McEwen. This will make McEwen's cars slower, while Garriga's cars go even faster. Nicky attends a party at Garriga's mansion and sees Jess for the first time since their separation. She looks beautiful in a red dress and kisses Garriga, which upsets Nicky. He talks to Jess afterward and she tells him she's doing well. Nicky then pretends to be a former employee and is approached by McEwen later on. Nicky tries to reconnect with Jess, but she is not interested. However, they eventually end up sleeping together in Nicky's hotel room. The next day, Owens comes to Nicky's room and talks about his frustrations with the younger generation and his work. Jess remains hidden. Nicky ends up selling the real fuel burn algorithm owned by Garriga to every other race team, including McEwen, for about 27 million euros. He also persuades Jess to escape with him. Nicky and Jess plan to run away, but one of Garriga's men crashes their car, and they are kidnapped and taken to a warehouse. Their mouths are taped shut, but the tape is removed from Nicky's mouth, while Jess's is left on and her nose is covered. Garriga wants Nicky to explain how he got the real algorithm. At first, Nicky tells Garriga that Jess wasn't involved so he can release her. However, Garriga plugs her nose again, so Nicky confesses that he used Jess and put a small device on her that recorded Garriga's computer password when she returned to his hotel room. Nicky removes the tape from Jess's mouth, and she reveals to him that Garriga is not actually her boyfriend. She confesses that she only wanted his expensive watch, which is worth a lot of money. Jess says that she has never had any romantic relations with Garriga and has never even been to his room, even though he tried many times. Nicky decides to tell the truth, but before he can do it, Owens shoots him in the chest. Garriga is scared and leaves. Nicky seems to be dying from the gunshot wound while Jess cries and expresses her love for him. It seemed like Nicky had died, but Owens revealed that he shot Nicky in a safe spot to avoid causing severe harm. Although Nicky's lung was punctured, Owens removed the blood and saved him. Owens then referred to Nicky as Mello, which made Jess realize that Owens was actually Nicky's father, Bucky Spurgeon. Jess also realized that the entire plan was a setup, and they had executed the Toledo panic button. Owens drives Nicky and Jess to the nearest hospital. He reminds Nicky of the importance of being fully committed to the con game, and reveals that he will be taking all the money. Jess supports Nicky as they walk to the hospital entrance. Nicky smiles when he sees that Jess is wearing Garriga's watch.